Alright, hey there, I'm Kirill from Huntsmen, and we'll talk a little bit about my gear and my guitars and pedals and all that. So here I'm actually holding a P93 from Epiphone, and the reason I got this is actually I used to play a lot of solid body guitars, and although I do love them and they sound huge depending on where you want to be, my dreams have always been, I'm a huge like B.B. King fan, and I love just very fat sounds. And I've noticed that a lot of the semi-hollow guitars first off squeak a lot, which is terrific because I love noise, and if you ever see us live, we're extremely noisy, and a lot of the times it's because of my semi-hollows. But nonetheless, the P93 I actually picked up some time ago, several years ago, and I really started loving it. It's funny, the Bigsby here I actually never use. I think I've used it a couple of times, but the guitar has a tendency to not stay in tune very well when I'm using it, especially with how hard I hit it. And actually, Chris was complaining a little bit about his guitar too in regards to that. We're afraid of things going out of tune. If we have a lot of quiet parts, we want to make sure everything's staying in tune at all times. I'm just going to push it to the side, and although I play extremely heavy, I have yet to hit it, although I hit my switches all over the place here. But nonetheless, I really love this guitar, and it's extremely loud, and it has actually three P90s here. It's just the regular stock P90s, but I actually always turn off the middle because as soon as I turn it on, the whole guitar actually squeals and just hums beyond belief. So I actually always have that off, aside from once in a while just coming in a little bit here and there. This is one of my favorite guitars, and this tuning for this guitar here is actually going to be, what is this? This is the D flat or E sharp D flat tuning, so it's more of the standard tuning for us here, and then we drop the high string once in a while. So and the strings we end up using actually across the board is actually the Diodarios. This is 11s on here, 11 to I believe it's 54. I don't remember the exact high string on there, but that's what I do for this. And actually picks that I use for this is 114 gauge as well. So it ends up I wanted a guitar that was a little bit higher in tune, and it's a little bit noisier because I just like noise. I like a lot of noise, and I want all my guitars to make way too much noise for anyone's ears. And I think if you see us live, it kind of comes across real well. Mahogany neck here as well, maple body as well. So nothing super crazy about this guitar, but again, it's just something I've had for quite some time, and I've really grown accustomed to as well. So. Yeah. So the next guy here, just plug that. It's gonna be the Starcaster, and this actually my bandmates bought me and my wife. So this was actually one of my dream guitars. This is actually the reissue Starcaster itself. I actually took off the pickguard as well because, again, I have a tendency to play really hard, and I was afraid I'm just gonna smash it or crack it or hurt myself somehow. So I just unscrewed that thing pretty much immediately as soon as I got it. So. This guy here, this one actually stays in the lower tuning, which is the C sharp and B's and all that good stuff. And this guy is no P90s, obviously. Here it's actually two humbuckers. These are stock humbuckers from Fender as well. And here I actually have to roll off a little bit on the tone. I've noticed with my amp, this one comes in a little bit hotter and a little bit more high-pitched and just a little bit too high for me, so I actually have to roll off a little bit off the tone just to make sure it matches a little bit with the P93 over there. And again, gauge strings is going to be 1249, I believe, or 1252 or something like that. But nonetheless, since it's a lower tuning, I always want to increase my gauges because I bend really hard as well when I play, so I have a tendency to overbend, and then everything just sounds terrible. So. But yeah, again, this is an awesome gift from my bandmates and everybody. They actually gave it to me right here outside the building. So that was really cool. Well, this one, I believe this whole guitar is actually maple. So the neck as well as the body itself. So, and I actually like this a little bit better. The scale's a little bit smaller, so my fingers move around a lot quicker than they normally would, which is good, I guess, and bad because then I overthink myself. But yeah. This here is all maple. And that's kind of it, I guess, for this guy here. If you care, DiMarzio straps is the only thing I ever used. I've used strap locks, and I've used different types of straps, so both of the guitars have this. And I have a tendency to rip them out by accident. And I've noticed these guys stay on there the longest. And the only time I've actually had a strap break was this guy used to come in metal, this little clip section here. And one show, whatever I did, I actually somehow bent the metal and then broke the inside of it. I don't know how that happened, but nonetheless, these straps are probably like my savior because I throw my guitars around all over the place as well. So if you're in a metal band or a hardcore band or something like that and you're going to throw your stuff, definitely use these DiMarzios because strap locks seem to kind of either bend or snap or something happens inside and just goes to shit pretty quickly for me at least. So, but yeah, that's kind of it for this guy. So my amps here. So actually, I use two amps. The top is my Vox, which I've had for fucking ages. Essentially, it was my dream amp. I loved classic rock. I'm a huge Beatles fan as well, and I've just all my life I've wanted a Vox, and that was my dream. So this is a Vox CC2 variation of it, where I actually swapped out the speakers. So there was the regular traditional Vox speakers in there. This isn't hand wire. This is just a model they actually discontinued, and I put in a couple of red coats, Eminence red coats in here, just so it's a little bit more classic rocky, which is great. We play metal though, so you need a little bit of low end. This guy, not a lot of low end. When you're using a fuzz with this pedal, it seems to crank it up a little bit, but again, when I get to the second amp here, it kind of fills the void where this guy was missing. This is more of like the mids and the highs. Usually goes straight through the top, or through the actual top boost. I've tried normal, not enough power for me, so I go top boost because when I hit it, I want, aside from my pedals doing the distortion, I like a little bit of grind from the actual amp itself, so just, again, a little bit noisier for myself here. And really, that's kind of it for the Vox. So I actually used to use the Vox into this cab here. I actually used to split, so it would be two red coats here, and then it's vintage 30s in here. And I used to get this guy to go in here as well, so I had essentially a 4x12. But, again, they didn't fix the low end part of it. There's a little bit more low end out of the cab below here, but I was like, alright, still not enough. So I started looking for different kinds of heads and amps and just whatever I could find. A couple of things that came up was like the Softag, what is it, the Mag 60s? Is that the one I was looking for? The Softag Mag 60, I believe it was. I was like, alright, that's fine. It's boutique, you know, it's pricey. And I was like, well, I want something different. I don't want the same thing everybody else has. And I've heard a little bit of word of some wiring issues and whatever else is wrong with them. So I was like, well, let me see what I can find. Well, I found this guy here. Essentially, it's a Russian-made amp as well. It's called the MK60. And this guy is, it's just bass out the ass, essentially. So this guy fills the void where this guy failed. As soon as you turn this guy up to just, I mean, if you have, like I have it here, about 2.5 to 3. Honestly, beyond 2, it's nothing but bass. If you turn up the presence a little bit, you could actually get a little bit of the bass out of there. But honestly, it's one thing that we were probably missing. When we were playing a whole bunch during rehearsals, it was fine whenever Chris would do a solo. It just seemed like all the low end would disappear. And although Mark was filling quite a bit of that, at least on the guitar side, it just seemed very flat. As soon as we got this guy, holy shit, it literally felt like there was a third guitarist essentially playing with me and just covering the whole low end, since it's actually going to this cab here. This cab here is actually Dictator/Tyrant cab that I had made custom to actually fit underneath this Vox specifically, so it could always, it's the exact same size essentially as the Vox before I even got this guy here. So and these are Russian amps. They don't make them anymore. They're from the 90s. They use some wacky tubes that luckily the person that sold it to me gave me a whole bunch of, which I guess you have to order from Russia, but luckily a whole bunch of spares with that guy here. And it's not modded, because there's a modded version where it actually takes just traditional tubes, but I figured just keep it Russian. And I guess they were, what was it? They were, I'm trying to remember the history of the Red Bear. It was, I think, Marshall, or Gibson, I think, actually commissioned them to make some amps, and I guess they started to, and whatever happened, and not a whole bunch was released. So then finding this guy, and it's been a fucking miracle because it helps out a lot. So now I carry a whole bunch of stuff. Mark's going less, and I'm going more, because why not? You only live once, I guess. So And the way that I split all this stuff is actually, again, part of technically the amp section here. Is this guy's, the Big Shot ABY. Really great switch. I run both the cab, or I guess technically the combo, as well as the head at the same time at all times. So I have this guy, gets rid of any kind of ground issues, any kind of phasing issues, so it's probably one of the more useful fucking pedals that I've ever had. Highly suggest, though, plug power into it, although it works without power. A couple of shows, I couldn't tell if I actually had both of them on, or it's just my volume was extremely loud coming out of one or the other. So that was always like finicking, like, oh my god, am I actually with both heads, or am I on just one head, or one of the combos, or something like that. So that guy's a fucking dream. And then technically it's over here as well, but I use a slide as well. So a couple of our songs I actually use a slide. It's what is a Dunlop. I don't know the size. It says 203, but glass is the way to go for me. I used to use a steel one, and it was bronze. It was just really, and actually wasn't pleasant to listen to. So I ended up going just with the glass slide as well. So that's kind of my whole little rig here. So I'm a huge fan of delay. It's probably one of my most favorite sounds or noise makers, and just, as you can see, it's a whole bunch. 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, I guess the looper, so 5 almost, essentially. I guess I can start you at the beginning here. Obviously, we have the pedal power, like Mark said previously. It's a fucking savior, because before we were noisy without power, pedal power, and then when we got it got a little bit more quiet, but more quiet on the electricity side. So it actually didn't sound like our shit was about to explode at any second. So this is probably one of the best investments ever. So definitely highly suggest for anyone that's taking music in any way professional, or just wants a clean sound or a clean power structure here, fucking just go with the pedal power. It's super awesome. So essentially the way my stuff works is I have all my distortions in the beginning, delays, and then I have one reverb at the end. So starting here from the full tone OCD, I believe this is version 2 or 3. I've had this guy for quite some time. Essentially this is just like for the regular, I'm trying to think here, the best way to describe it for me at least is nice and heavy, yet clear enough that you could hear all the notes. So whenever you're picking through stuff, this is really nice and clear, but it still gives a good like bottom end or so to it. So I really love this pedal here. This guy is actually made by a company called Monster Peace, and this is essentially a clone, which is essentially like a $2,500, $3,000 pedal that I would never purchase myself because it's ridiculous in price. But it's just a great boost overdrive. And a lot of the times I actually use this as a boost to the two that I use here. Once in a while for the classic rock, I go with this guy. There's enough drive in it that it actually makes it sound pretty cool. We have a song where we just kind of play, I guess you could say, just a straightforward, almost Metallica riff, and this guy comes through real well, and it's real nice and tight, and it just sounds really great. This guy here is actually technically Chris's, but it wasn't sounding too great on whatever he was using it on previously. And like I said earlier, on the Vox, muff pedals I think sound great, and I enjoy Earthquake devices quite a bit, and the hoof is fucking amazing. It's extremely loud, it's extremely fat, it's unwielding almost at times, but I fucking love that, again, being a noise guy. And sometimes using it with the stud, it actually tightens it up a little bit so you can hear some of the leads if I'm doing a little bit of lead stuff. But all in all, this guy is usually for the heavier, I guess, doomy stoner metal sections of our songs, just so it gives it a lot of drive. And of course, you know, having a muff is always fun, I think, personally here. So from here, we actually go to over here, or my first delay here, which is the DD3 digital delay. Used to have a couple of these. One, again, kicked too hard apparently, and I broke off one of the knobs, which I kept on my board for quite some time. But this guy here has just a really slight delay on it, so there's just enough that you could hear it, but it's so far in the back that if not really paying attention to it, or if I don't have these guys on, it'll almost sound closer to a reverb than really a delay. From that delay, we actually jump over here. Actually, no, you know what? I think I switched it up. From this guy, we actually go into the volume pedal. So it breaks up these 3 delays. And the reason for that is I do a lot of swells. And I do a lot of just like whale calls, as everybody in the band calls it. So the reason I did that is just I could do whatever I need to do here. I have the tuner, actually, the TU tuners straight inside of the actual volume pedal. So it's on all the time, so I can just check my tuning at all times, which, again, I have a tendency to because our songs have a lot of dynamics, and when it's quiet, we want to make sure everything's actually in tune. So that guy's running pretty much all the time. So I do a swell, I do whatever it is I need to do, and I could really quickly just retune, make sure everything's in tune, and then swell back in if I need to. From here, it goes into the first pedal here, which is another delay. It's actually called an interlope, and it's by a guy named Sludge Factory Effects out of Michigan. So this is actually a prototype that he made. He sells the regular version, which actually has art and stuff like that, and really beautiful art. But this guy here gets really loud, and because it's a prototype, as soon as you turn this knob here, I actually don't recall what knob it actually is, but as soon as it gets about from the halfway mark on, it makes the worst squeal I've ever heard in my life. And if I do it too long, I feel like my amps are just gonna blow, and the speakers are just gonna fall out or something like that. So this one I use somewhat sparingly. There's a couple of new songs that I'm using it on now that it has a really great trail, and just it holds the feedback from my notes really well, so I end up using this guy as well. Next, after that, it goes into the flashback, which is just TC Electronics with regular delay and looper pedal. I always leave it on the tape effects delay here. And it's pretty long as well, and just a little bit of feedback as well. Honestly, this guy I only use in conjunction with the interloper and this analog delay as well, which is essentially like this. A good amount of kind of slapback, but a lot of delays within that slapback. So what I would do is I actually turn all 3 of these on, and when I do my swells, because of all the different timings between the 3 pedals, it ends up making it sound like I have an EBO, and it makes life easier because I don't like using an EBO anymore. I used to use an EBO ages ago, but then it's another piece of gear that I have to remember to put batteries in and fucking just have with me and in my cases, and hopefully it didn't break while we were traveling or doing whatever it was. So I've learned that these 3 guys all together and swelling in and out, and I could actually, you can sustain notes for ages. And if you have distortion on, or if you have, the overdrive on, even without swelling, rocking on one single note or a couple of different notes, there's enough delay between all of it that you won't really hear a lot of the feedback. You'll actually hear the note itself. Now from all that, it goes into this looper here, the Ditto, from TC Electronics as well. And between songs, like Mark was saying, we have a lot of atmospheric noises or different sounds that we want to do. So a lot of the times, Chris and I end up just actually looping something between changes, since we have to change guitars somewhat frequently. Mark luckily just tunes up, but yeah, we end up using this guy, and this was somewhat new because the other loopers that we were using we broke, so that was fun. So then from this guy, the final end of it is actually this Ghost Echo from Earthquake Devices, and the reason I got this is it's a reverb and a little bit of a delay as well, but it's mostly reverb, is because I used to use the Vox's reverb, but since I have a head now, the Vox's reverb obviously doesn't apply between both the actual Red Bear as well as the Vox. So it was kind of sad hearing a little bit of reverb coming out of the top, and then the bottom is just nice and, I guess, clean in so many ways. But I was like, oh man, I need to find a really cool reverb pedal. And this guy here is fucking wacky. Like, it literally is like Ghost Echoes. If you increase the depth as well and the dwell, it just sounds like there's a whole bunch of shit happening in the background, and just it's really encompassing, and it's really beautiful. Whenever I do a lot of single note leads and stuff like that, and it sounds really pretty, especially stacked with a little bit of distortion beforehand. But yeah, highly recommend this one. They have another actual delay and reverb, but this guy I think is simple enough that it's like you get the attack up, you get dwell and a little bit of depth, and you're good to go with a really sweet reverb pedal. But you go a little bit deeper and get really weird with that shit. So, and then from there, obviously, it just goes to the amps. But yeah, that's kind of it for the pedals. So yeah, thanks a lot for checking out all my gear here. Hopefully, I didn't ramble on too much. You know, thank you for coming out and check out, I guess, Huntsmen. You know, don't have anybody to sponsor, but I'd say support your local pedal makers. And then I think Sludge Factory is doing a great job out there in Michigan as well. So definitely look them up if you can. But otherwise than that, yeah, check out Huntsmen.